Hey guys, it's Matt here again with the Wise Buy Guy, and today we're talking about belts, specifically EDC belts. When I first got into kind of the EDC world, I went through dozens of belts trying to find the right belt. So I wanted to share some belts that I've worn in the past, and I want to kind of end the video with what I walked away with buying a couple dozen belts. What I think about the EDC belts and where I've landed as far as my favorite belt. One of the first EDC belts that I bought, I don't even have it anymore, I gave it to a friend, was a Hanks leather EDC gun belt. Real thick piece of leather. I mean, kind of was the one when I did a Google search, it was like boom, right there. It was expensive. It was probably like $100 with like a 100-year warranty kind of a thing. I didn't really love it because it was a traditional belt, buckle in holes, and you gotta just either you're too skinny or you're too fat, right? So that kind of led me to getting away from a traditional belt to belts that were more, shall we say, infinitely adjustable. And one of my first big purchases was an Aegis gear belt. I learned about the Aegis gear belt, and I've still got my Aegis gear belt right here. I learned about this belt from John Lovell of the Warrior Poet Society. I'm actually wearing my War Poet shirt to represent. If you guys haven't checked out the Warrior Poet YouTube channel or the app, again, they're not paying me to say any of this, but go check them out. It's phenomenal stuff. I've been following John Lovell's stuff now on YouTube for 3 years, 4 years. Friend of a friend kind of introduced him to me, and I've been loving his stuff ever since then. But he had talked about this Aegis gear Aegis belt, and when I saw him talk about it, I was like, that's a fantastic belt. And it is a fantastic belt. It has one of the beefiest buckles here, and I mean, it's stiff, you guys. Like, I mean, man, I can hold this up, and I mean, yeah, that belt has some fantastic strength to it. Here was one of the problems for me with this belt. The buckle itself is not user-friendly. What I really loved about this belt is the fact that when you go ahead and you feed this bad boy in here, it's got this little locking mechanism that you can lock. And I mean that belt, I haven't tried this, but you could tow a truck with this thing. I mean, it is just sturdy. It's like this scuba gear. You can go ahead, it comes with these little rubber bands, and you go ahead, you tuck them on your belt like so, and you've got a really nice, really rigid, I mean, you're not going to squeeze this thing. Fantastic belt. What ended up happening though for me is it's just a little big, it's a little bulky, it's not the most comfortable belt to wear long term. Again, I'm wearing these belts 12, 14 hours a day. Also what would happen and I would notice is the closing mechanism they have here is one of these little slide bars. Once it gets locked in place, was just a little hard to pop off and again to move to take your belt off. Now what I loved about this kind of belt, and I'm going to contrast it with one of my 511 belts here, is I could adjust the belt all underneath my shirt, right? So imagine, if you will, you got your belt on, and I'm going to kind of wear it up here. Don't wear your belts like this, it's weird. But if I've got my belt on and I've got my shirt down, I could under or over my shirt, I could real easily just kind of hit that, pull out a little bit, and I could get a little bit of wiggle room, a little breathing room. Really good around Thanksgiving, right? So the one thing that was problematic with the Aegis gear Aegis belt is its price. When I bought this thing, it was like $115. I just checked today on Amazon, it's still about $115. So it's a pretty penny. So that was one of my first belts. So I wanted something that was maybe a little bit more comfortable, maybe not quite as big and bulky, which led me to 511. Again, you guys know I've reviewed a lot of 511 gear already. I enjoy 511. So I had what they call their trainer belt. Now, the belt itself was significantly cheaper. It was like $40, right, for the trainer belt. And the majority of the belt is a pretty good, nice, thick, again, you're not going to be able to squeeze this and crunch the belt. So a good, sturdy belt. It had a different buckle, though. So this buckle here, you had to feed through and then wrap around, and then you had this big swath of Velcro to get your belt. So Here's what was problematic for me with this belt, was twofold. First, that Thanksgiving dinner, right? That big meal, I can't easily adjust this belt like I could the Aries gear, the Aegis belt, right? The only way to adjust this belt is by making this big, loud Velcro rip, moving the belt out a little, and then re-Velcroing it. The other problem that I had with this belt is, again, wearing it, when you carry Appendix like I do, you typically wear your belt buckles a little bit more to the side, and that buckle is just a little on the big side to comfortably wear, and because of your strap, it makes this part of the belt really thick when you have this strap doubled over. So getting a holster clipped on there was a little challenging. So it was a cheap belt. I wore this for years. Again, if you're not carrying, you don't really adjust your belt, it's probably not a bad, again, cheap belt. It was like 40 bucks on Amazon, right? So good belt, but a cheap belt. And one that I had problems with as far as adjustment, as well as getting things clipped onto the front of the belt, which led me to one of my other belts. And this is the belt that I just fell in love with. This is one of the Nexbelt Blade Tech belts. This is one of my leather belts. I mean, that thing looks great with a pair of slacks, has a really, really nice buckle on the front, but where the Nexbelt started making the waves in the EDC world was with their ratchet technology. So the way that you put this belt on, it just slips right in the front, and right here on the back side of this belt, it's got these little ratchets, and you guys can see each ratchet, that little thing clicks, and that's not going anywhere. Now to undo the belt, I thought this was going to take a little bit more time. It's got this little lever right here that would actually be on the bottom of the belt, and all you have to do is just lightly pull up on this lever and your belt comes out. So I bought this belt. It was the most amazing dress belt ever. So again, professional attire, going to church, going to work, something that I need, you know, a nice looking belt was fantastic. The one problem with this belt when you get into the EDC world though was the size of the buckle. So the buckle itself, right, when you actually put the belt through, it looks like a normal size buckle, but it's got all of this extra fat here on the back that makes it nearly impossible to wear Appendix. Now again, if you're carrying non-Appendix, probably not a big deal, but to get just enough tilt on the belt to get your gun, especially if you're using two clips here, was a little bit challenging. But I loved the belt. Way easier than the Aries gear as far as adjustments, right? The underneath the shirt. So again, you put on your belt, right? You cinch it down. You're like, oh man, I just got a big meal. This one, you don't even have to move this side. You can literally just lift up and stretch, and you're good. So again, talk about one-handed adjustment. Let me do that again. So I'm here, and you go big full belly, boom. Easiest belt, again, one-hand adjustment through the shirt, no problem. And then they came out with their, I believe this is called the Supreme Appendix. Now what makes the Supreme Appendix different is not the ratchet technology. In fact, if we look on the back of the belt, the ratchets here, I mean, it's the same thing. And if we look in here, there's our little lever. There's a little difference in how the lever works. So this actually has a little push button here on the side that you see where you push in. I thought this was going to be a problem, like maybe, because again, this part's going down into your waist. So I thought, oh, if I bend over, it's going to hit this and my belt's going to come undone. Never happened. This little thing here is genius. I love it. But where the real magic was is the size of the belt buckle. I just want to contrast these guys for you here real quick. Look at that size difference. In fact, the buckle here is almost as big as just the back piece of the original belt, right? This buckle is tiny. Let's look at it maybe this way, right? Amazing buckle. And I know they've kind of changed the material. This was a more, you know, scuba mesh, more similar to the 511 belt or the Aegis gear belt as far as the kind of material it was made out of, but I'll tell you what, that small buckle going around, being able to be worn slightly off to the side, opening up all of this real estate for EDC gear was fantastic. Now, the one thing that I have done is I did take a little piece of elastic here. I actually took this off of the Aegis gear belt, and I actually use it to hold down the little bit of flap. My weight sometimes fluctuates. I'm sure you guys all understand how that happens. So what I'll do is, again, these belts are, by the way, cut to fit. So they come, I think, like 50 inches long, and you can kind of adjust how much you need on the back. They've got these cool markings, so you can just, you know, make it customized. So I always leave my belt a little bit long, so I end up with a little leftover. And then what I do is I just kind of slide that through, tuck it in, and it keeps my whole belt out of the way. If you can only get one belt, and you should only really need one belt, if I could go back in time and tell Nexbelt to make this belt, I probably wouldn't have bought any of those others. This is the belt of belts. It's about 65, 70 bucks. So kind of right in the middle of the two, the 511 and the Aegis belts. But this is by far my favorite belt. You only get one belt. This is going to be it. Now, I did want to talk about one other belt, and this is a MidwayUSA Stage 1 competition belt. So the reason I wanted to throw this belt in here is because this belt is actually two belts. So I use this as kind of a modified war belt because it was like 30 bucks. Not the best quality. You guys have to forgive the Velcro noise. Okay, there we go. Not the best quality belt. Again, this belt was like 30 or 40 bucks. But what I love about this belt is the fact that it is two belts in one. So here is our inner belt, and you guys can see, I mean, the inner belt, it does have a little bit of, you know, strength to it. It's not just going to collapse in on itself, but I mean, it's nowhere as sturdy as any of those other belts, right? Even, oh, here, let's look at the Blade Tech leather belt, right? I mean, that thing at least has a good foot before you start to get a little slope. This belt, I mean, it just bends right away. But it does have a little strength to it. Now, what's cool with this belt is it has your hook and loop material. So similarly to the 511 belt, you could go ahead, you could put this belt on, right? And you could slap it on, and you could have a belt just off this center one that's gonna do the job. Now, again, you got your hook loop. This is the hook part facing out. So it might look a little weird, again, having a fuzzy belt, but it's not going to be the end of the world. And then what you could do, and this is where I use it for like my quote-unquote my war belt, is you take your second belt. Now this one is significantly thicker, again, when you're looking at the belt, and it goes right on top of the Velcro. So you do have to kind of play with getting it on right, but you now have two belts on top of each other. It does come with its own MidwayUSA little piece that you can, you know, wrap around to keep it all in place, I guess. I don't know why they actually give that to you because the Velcro on this is phenomenal. But where I do like having this is if I am going to go to the range, I'm going to have some kit, and I don't want the kit sliding between my belt loops. You know, you can put on your inner belt, get all your gear loaded on, right? And you put your outer belt over that, and it's going to pinch everything down. So loud though. So not a belt I would use as an EDC, but I did feel it was worth an honorable mention for something that's just dedicated to going to the range. So hopefully this video has helped you guys. Again, if you want a super heavy duty, durable, high-end, expensive belt, the Aegis gear gonna be for you. If you're like, I'm broke, I love the 511 belt, but you guys, if you could just save the money, save that 20 bucks, right? I mean, you're talking like a $40 to $60 difference, or a $40 cost, or a $60 cost, or a $20 difference to get that Nexbelt that's going to be the way to go. And again, the Nexbelt, you do have a whole line, look, customization on different types of buckles, so you can really personalize it and make it yours. So can't give the Nexbelt any more kudos than that. Hopefully this was a helpful video for you guys. Until next time, buy smart.